from Nashville, Tennessee. It's time for another episode of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow, where all things related to your safety and security are discussed, detailed, and delivered to you. You may leave with a tip that saves you money or a tactic that saves your life. So here are your hosts, owner and founder of Defense Systems, Brink Fidler, and owner and operator of Herring Technology, Tom Herring.
Hey everybody, welcome to this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. Brink and Tom here as usual to talk about all things related to your safety and security, whether it be technology, law, rules, firearms, you name it. There's plenty to talk about, and it seems to continue to grow the amount of subjects that we're able to talk about just because of, well, turn on the news and you can see, neighborhoods burning and crazy ANTIFA idiots running through neighborhoods, shining flashlights and lasers into people's homes and throwing Molotov cocktails everywhere. So, there's plenty to talk about. But I don't want to say narrow the scope, but focus a little bit on personal protection and what people, just what we're seeing, Tom, you and I, in this industry, if you will, with the police being so tied up dealing with, the overwhelming amount of idiots that are, rioting in the streets. People are turning to, protect themselves, obviously, and understand that the police aren't necessarily going to make it. But I know I have clients who've had an extreme increase in need for private training, carry permits, firearms, ammunition, which of course is very hard to come by right now. But I imagine you have the same, right? I mean, I can guarantee you your clientele have got to be a little edgy.
Our residential market, which we're not really in residential, but we do for those that have the threat and the need. We obviously take care of them, and yes, that is kind of skyrocketed here lately, and right. For good reason. I mean, we never want to push panic and hysteria to promote any sales by any stretch, but for the first time in our country in a long time, the need is so evident based off what we're seeing right now, and we have a little sarcasm here on our show as well.
No, I can't believe Tom Herring has any sarcasm in him at all.
Well, we discussed we want to fire Tom up this episode, don't we?
He's already fired up. I told you I walked by him in the office this morning. He's slamming his backpack in a chair. I'm like, yes, he is ready for the podcast. That's what I'm talking about.
We're amongst idiots.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I want people to understand, yes, y'all do some residential, but if you guys just need an alarm, that's Tom's not your company. Extensive, for example, he recently installed a pretty extensive safe room for a client, and things like that, facial recognition for access control for VIP clientele that have their doors open when it sees their face. And, again, you can call Herring for your alarm, but they're going to tell you to call somebody else more than likely. But for certain VIP residential and people with elevated threat, if you will, than the average Joe, maybe.
Elevated threat. We want you to have a security assessment done, by a security professional. We can give you some of those to use, but it's alarms are great, and I don't want to downplay them. But it's they have a purpose, but
sure.
It's just a one-fold purpose, and it's what is your threat and how do we eliminate the threat rather than what do we sell?
Sure.
And that's our biggest thing. And you mentioned the safe room, and those have been fun projects. Things
sure.
that we're taking a look at and what all goes into it, and it's we've had to look at redundant air supplies, ventilation. We've had to look at, multiple power sources. Do we give you 5 days of power off battery? And then you've got your lack of a better term, your oh crap power source, which is your last battery that at the end of 5 gives you an extra 24 hours and then you're done, type
right.
thing. We've actually put furniture in there, that folds up. so that they can stay for multiple days. I mean, you want to be comfortable if you're going to have to stay multiple days. We look at the food supply, the water, set you up on a program to where you can we come in, make sure your food's still good, your ammo's still good, everything that you have is there, on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, whatever you want it to be like.
Well, you also check on medical supplies because they have an expiration, and AEDs, right, which have a battery and that kind of stuff too, which is pretty extensive.
And that's the biggest thing about these, safe rooms, bunk houses, whatever you want to call it, your bug out center, whatever, is keeping them, up to date. A lot of people just grab stuff, put it there, and then, forget about it. It's on our minds a little bit more now with the rioting and everything going on, but you forget about it and you get there and, there's nothing worse than, your food is spoiled, we don't think about your bathroom accommodations even in these rooms. So, you have to consider that.
Now, is that a subscription service that you sell, or like for monthly, they'll come out and make sure everything's
correct? It's just a service agreement, that we put in, and it's custom to you. I mean, it could be once a year we come in, depending on whatever you need, or you can do it yourself, but humans are creatures of laziness at times, and if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And those rooms generally are out of sight, and people forget about it until they need it. And
how much of an uptick have you seen in that request of service?
Significant.
Really?
Yeah, it's
well, people first of all are stuck at home a lot now, right? Working from home, right? So your home obviously is where your family is. Your home is your castle, for lack of a better word. And so if you're at home and you turn on the news and you see what's going on, you're feeling less and less safe even in your home, right? Because people are, these idiots are moving into neighborhoods and raising Cain, not to mention the uptick in Middle Tennessee of juvenile crime and vehicle break-ins and armed, vehicle pursuits and everything else. Just the cops are great, obviously, right? I'm a huge law enforcement fan, being retired law enforcement, but they're not going to be there. They respond to calls for service is what they do. If it comes to your door or your property, they're not going to be there. They're going to come take the report and take pictures of where all the bodies are laying that I've left in my front yard, but or whatever. But
hopefully not in the front yard.
It depends on what they're doing.
Well, that's exactly.
We need to talk about that because, I you guys know this, but I taught a private carry permit class a few days ago. There are some clients that just that's what they want to do. Is they don't want to do the permit online. They don't want to go to a big group of people they don't know. They want private instruction. So, there's a lot of talk. Part of that about half of that class is lecture based, right? And because it's talking about law and liability, and the big part of it, of course, is the Castle Doctrine. So, which basically it's the whole adage of, people talk about this all the time. Well, if you shoot them on your front porch, drag them inside, all that kind of craziness, right? So what the Castle Doctrine says is if they breach your home, meaning they actually enter your home, then normally you have to articulate. If I'm out at, Herring Technology parking lot and I end up smoking one, well, I end up having to explain to investigators that there was imminent fear of serious bodily injury or death, right? That I have to articulate one of those. And serious bodily injury is defined as being knocked unconscious, broken bones, large gashing wounds, things like that. If you are 100 yards away from me with a baseball bat threatening to beat my brains in, I can't shoot you because you have no means to execute that threat from 100 yards away with a baseball bat. But if you're 7 yards away, bye-bye, right? So, however, the Castle Doctrine presumes that threat of serious bodily injury or death if they're in your home, right? You don't have to wait for them to pose some substantial threat of serious bodily injury or death. The law presumes if they breach your residence that's already there, right? Because they're obviously not there to bring you flowers.
The lock on the door is to protect them.
Right. Which is why all your doors are unlocked, right?
Literally.
Because you're sitting there going,
yeah. But Brink, we just saw in St. Louis. There we go. Jim's on the ball this morning. Is in St. Louis, we saw this. You know, I mean, this just played out on national television for us. And literally, what was the Second Amendment written for?
Moment.
For that exact moment that happened.
Yep.
It was written, you know, to protect them. And that kind of fell apart with the district attorney there, you know, that tried to file charges against them for doing it.
Wasn't that a trial by media, though?
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other part of civics we've lost out in here.
You've got a bunch of crazy leftists that have infiltrated district attorneys' positions.
Correct.
That's another problem. I mean, they're making decisions on literally on people's lives based on politics and not staying in the middle and looking at it from an unbiased lens. And that's not happening because people are so freaking amped up with Trump derangement syndrome and everything else on the planet that they're making political decisions with people's lives. That's garbage.
You crossed, you know, the Castle law, you crossed Stand My Ground, they crossed, you know, even down to, you know, I hear these gun activists, like anti-gun activists that, why do you need 30 rounds in your magazine? You know,
because there might be 30 people.
How many people were at the house in St. Louis?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he did not have enough with 30 rounds. And when they are making they've broken 2 gates to get to where they were.
And said they were going to come in there.
And made threats.
Yep, and burn their house down and rape his wife.
Correct.
I mean.
And a district attorney presses charges against them.
Of course.
In America.
I mean, I don't know. They could be a little more selective. I mean.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Listen. And this came up in the damn sound effects. I'm going to take those buttons away. This came up in that class I taught, right? Like, where you live, I mean, it should not affect your decision making. Where you live should in the America that was founded and our constitutional America, that should make no damn difference at all. You're going to make a decision based on the imminent threat of serious bodily injury or death, regardless of the situation. But there are counties in Middle Tennessee where you're going to be treated differently than some other ones, just based on politics. And Nashville, I guarantee you, is one of them. So, however, I told all my students I would much rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. So let's work it out later. And fine, you get prosecuted. I mean, whatever. I mean, you're alive, you know. I mean, but it's not real difficult to articulate imminent threat of serious bodily injury or death. It's just not. I mean, police officers are held to the same standard. I mean, as far as using lethal force is concerned, it's not difficult to articulate. Where you get into some issue, I guess, not issue, but people have questions, is defense of a third person. Does that have to be a specific third person? Can it be society in general? For carry permit holders, no. You can't say I was protecting society in general by taking him out, right? But if you go over to you hear screaming at your neighbors and you walk out there and you see, you know, your neighbor straddling his wife in the front yard with a knife, well, absolutely you can pop him. I mean, hello. I mean, that's pretty obvious. That has nothing to do with the Castle Doctrine, but that's imminent threat of serious bodily injury or death to a third person that you absolutely can protect too.
And I want to be cautious in that, and what we just saw, up in Wisconsin, and, you know, the 17-year-old with the AR-15, and, you know.
Kyle Rittenhouse, yeah.
Yeah. Was he protecting himself? You know, yes, if you go back and look at everything, but of course we've already tried that through the media again, Jim. You know, that went through an instant trial.
Oh, that's why they prosecuted him. That's why they arrested him, because they burned the country down if they didn't.
But let's just say, you know, we literally are having to think about things and look at society now different than we have in the past because of what's going on. When you roll in to that situation and you're talking about imminent threat to another individual, we have chaos right now.
Oh,
if you would have rolled up on that scene and saw him sitting on the ground and him with an AR-15 and the perp coming after him with a pistol.
What do you expect them to do?
And they're 2 civilians in the middle of a riot. Who's who? Who's the good guy? Who's the bad? So now you really have something to think about right now.
Oh, yeah. Certainly, yeah. Especially if you're not a police officer, so you're a carry permit holder, which I guess what you're getting at, and you roll up in that situation, you better be darn sure. And there's a specific video that the Department of Safety put together in this training that shows a certain scene, and then it shows carry permit holder acting, and then it says 1 minute prior, and then it shows the whole story. And it turns out the carry permit holder was wrong, although based on what they saw. Initially, he wasn't wrong, but in that instance, knowing the facts we had laid out ahead of time, he was absolutely wrong. But the problem is, people don't always know the full story before they act in a third-person scenario in defense of a third person. And so, as a result, that's where people can get into trouble. So be darn sure you know exactly what's going on if you're going to get involved in defense of a third person.
And be prepared to capitulate against the media.
Oh,
well,
that's
hold a press conference.
Listen, Rittenhouse was acting in self-defense. There's no question. The first guy that he popped in the head tried to take his rifle away from him. Hello, that's a great way to get shot. And then you saw what played out with the other two. So, but imagine had they not arrested him. I mean, I don't know if y'all have seen the whole video, but he walks down the street and tries to give himself up to law enforcement. And they said, "Get out of here. Just keep going." You know, they're responding to the shots fired call. And it's like,
but now why would anybody in the news show the whole clip?
Oh, no,
because then it wouldn't be as much of a story. So there's no reason to see the whole story.
No.
Which that's where we fall short as society right now is look at the whole picture.
It's a really sharp radio host here in Nashville named Phil Valentine who always says media bias is not what they tell you, it's what they don't.
Exactly.
Well, it's how they shape narratives.
Well, of course.
The 5-year-old boy who got shot by the black guy, and everybody who was talking about that and how that was unjust, basically said, well, you know, the guy was arrested and he will be tried, and it was swift. So what are you guys complaining about? I'm like, well, can't we say that about George Floyd? Or
right.
The officer was arrested and being prosecuted and everything.
Yeah, but I'm telling you that
but it's a different narrative.
Those charges are going to get dismissed too because his attorneys, Chauvin, the officer's attorneys, have filed a motion to dismiss, and accompanied in that motion is the police manual showing that specific technique. And they were trained to do that technique and put their knee on his neck if you have an unruly subject. So there's no way a jury can convict him if that's the way he trained. What do you think's going to happen when that happens? Holy crap, right? But let's be real, y'all. They're just looking for an excuse to burn the city wherever they are because they have Trump derangement syndrome. They do not care about the facts, period. They're raising hell no matter what if a police officer shoots a minority. Even if that minority is trying to kill people and a police officer shoots them, they're raising Cain about it. Well, that's garbage, which is why so many of our clients are like, holy crap, what is happening? Yeah. And why they want to arm up, why they want safe rooms, why they want private training. And so people need to understand if you're going to do all that, what the law says. You know, again, Tom and I are not legal scholars, nor are we lawyers, but as a certified instructor, I do know this. Carrying over to vehicles is a big topic, right? Unless you look like you were getting ready to say something really brilliant.
No, I'm just, the vehicle is a great point because we're seeing that right now as well. What do you do? And you're trapped in a mob. We've talked about it on the show before.
Yep.
And so how does that carry over to Castle Doctrine?
In Tennessee, the law recognizes your vehicle as an extension of the Castle Doctrine. Also in Tennessee, any eligible, non-felon, non-adjudicated, mentally defective, all those things that would prevent you from owning a gun. Now in Tennessee, any Joe Blow that is not prohibited from possessing a gun can carry a gun in their car without a permit. So you can drive around with a gun in your car all day, no permit. You just can't get out and carry it without a permit. So you have a lot more people armed because of that law. I think it was last year or the year before they changed that.
Yeah.
But again, we're back to breaching, right? If somebody is, in that class specifically, I showed some videos from these riots because I wanted to show specific incidents, like at what point do you think you could have pulled the trigger here, right? And, you know, if somebody's sitting there kicking on your door while it's frightening, they're no real threat to you. The minute they start breaching your driver's side window,
when the glass comes out,
yep, then now it's a different story. Me personally, I'm going to tolerate a little more if I'm by myself than if my family's with me.
Correct.
Right. And I think that's most people. out there. But just understand, if they hit your driver's side window with something trying to break it, at what point, are they considered breaching? Because that next hit, and I don't really have a good answer, but that next hit with the baseball bat, if it breaks, that baseball bat's coming to your head, right? If it makes it through, maybe. If they pull your door open, we've seen that. Obviously, they have
breached at that point,
right?
What about showing the gun while they're doing that? All right.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Hands down, yeah. I mean, I'd give.
You really want to do
Wait
this?
a minute, you're talking about the victim showing the gun?
No, the victim. You're inside your car. You should be able to just hold the pistol in your hand. And be like, all right.
Yeah, I think you have to be cautious of it, because you could be considered showing the first threat at that point in time as well, if they haven't come through.
Yeah, that goes out the window at that point.
Or if you point it
you're
out.
not even thinking of that.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not pointing, you're just kind of sitting there, not pointing to anybody, just holding it in your hand and be like, all right, this is what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's different for law enforcement than it is for civilians, but just showing the weapon, not a bad idea to give them fair warning, and then it's not like they can't say they weren't warned, you know. But and we've seen one guy and this was in daylight, and this was caught on camera. Guy pulls a knife, says, "I'm gonna effing kill you," while another guy's swinging a skateboard at him, and he pops him. Good to go, and then just sits down in the street and waits on the cops. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's totally justified. But again, obviously the best thing to do is avoid this, and what we end up seeing, not all the time, but a lot of the time, these people get caught in these flash mobs, is they're looky-loos. They want to go downtown and see what's going on. I want to go see the riot. So they drive down there, and then what do you think happens? Yeah. That's not all the time. We've seen some of the ones I showed in that class were literally flash mobs on the interstate that just shut the interstate down. These people had nowhere to go, right? So those of you all that are lawful gun owners and have guns at home and maybe don't have a permit, understand you can put it in your car now lawfully and you're fine. And I cannot imagine being stuck in a flash mob on the interstate with my family in the car, them trying to break my windows out and me not have a firearm. Oh my Lord. Well, that's just not going to happen with me. But
now you got the other scenarios where you could be sitting outside and eating and they come upon you. Have you been seeing those?
Oh yes. Yeah. These outdoor, and again.
Yeah. And they come right up in your face and start throwing drinks on you. That's assault.
Which there again, why are they sitting outside so much? Because
they're just minding their own business.
The government has said
because COVID.
Because of COVID. So they're taking advantage of another situation, and it's just, where does it end? And it basically gets down to
November 4th.
Exactly.
I think there's an element that if something happens, then take a video on your phone. Okay, before the media gets a hold of this and runs with their own narrative, here's my side of the story and what happened.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Throw it up on YouTube.
I would film everything if you have that happen. But you brought up a good point. You throwing a drink on me, is that assault? Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a reasonable, imminent fear of serious bodily injury or death?
If the glass is broken, yes.
I think it'd be a stretch. Now, one of the other videos I showed was a mob.
If it's a hot coffee, yes. I'm being serious.
I know good attorneys as well, so you call me before you call anybody else. But one of the other things we've seen store owners where the mob turns on them, right? And we've seen store owners assaulted with 2x4s. Well, obviously that's imminent fear of serious bodily injury or death.
Yeah.
Throwing a brick at your head with 12 people chasing you could easily be articulated as imminent fear of serious bodily injury or death because of what they did to that guy. And I have the video, and it is terrible to watch. I mean, it is tough to watch. He's lived, thank God, but
Baltimore, the one where he sneaks up behind him. The old man.
No, this is older.
Oh, okay. It's sad that we have too many that we can discuss.
I started ripping riot videos off the internet as soon as they happen because I use them for training, as you all know. And I started labeling them Riot 1, Riot 2, Riot is the file name. I'm up to like Riot 78, wow. With just video that's out there. And I'll try and remember the one I'm talking about. I'll try and remember to put up on I'll put it up on the Defense Systems page if you guys want to see it. It's tough to watch, just know that. But it's a good training video. I mean, it's a really good training video. Thank goodness the guy's alive, but they turned on him in a hurry, and it doesn't take much. So, that's what's driving, again, back to what we started this episode with, our clients really want an increase in physical security presence, knowledge of the law, training, the even vehicle protection with the security laminate being put on people's vehicle windows to keep people from breaching that piece of glass without a lot of time and tools.
It gets back to what we've avoided in this country for so long, and we've not looked at, is basically personal responsibility.
Oh, amen.
You have to be personally responsible for your protection of you and your family, your store, your business, everything. Are the police there to help? Absolutely.
Sure.
But you have to be personally responsible. And, we're seeing it right now, people who aren't.
Yeah.
And what are they? What do they become when they're not? Victims.
Yep.
And we're at a point in our country right now, you have to do something.
Yep.
I mean, even if it's stay in, don't go. Be personally responsible. Like I said, don't be a looky-loo. I've got to go see what's going on. Guess what you're going to become? A victim.
Right.
You have a new title now. An idiot victim.
Right.
I mean, don't...
Yep.
Out of you guys, both expert opinions, what do you think is going to play out, in the coming months or even years? How do you see this playing out, as well as what should be the response as things are playing out? I kind of have in mind something as an example that if you have a police force that's being overwhelmed and understaffed all of a sudden, because now we just found out that the police chiefs in the Dallas Metroplex have all resigned or are resigning. And that's happening everywhere. They're all, like you said, dropping like flies. So what's the response? As a citizen, I guess militia, if you will, do you come out and help the police back everything, a citizen type of response with the police in check?
Not on your own. There are steps in place for the governors to make those requests and actually form a lawful militia, and they'll be looking for volunteers. If it gets to that, I think there's a lot of governors that will. There are some that won't. I mean, there are some mayors who have seen over 100 nights of their city burn into the ground who refuse any help because he has Trump derangement syndrome. Of course, the latest polling in that town in Portland shows that like over 2/3 of people have had it with the mayor, as you can imagine.
I had less than 25% approval rating as of yesterday.
Okay, so yeah, there you go.
Great leader.
Yeah, right.
What about the people who approve of what he's doing?
I know that's the 20% there.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you worry about.
Well, yeah, exactly. But to answer your question, Jim, we are seeing a ridiculous increase in training and in firearms purchasing. The gun manufacturers can't keep up. The gun stores can't keep up. The gun stores are limiting you to 1 box of ammo per visit. I mean, but as a responsible citizen, and only if you're comfortable, I don't want everybody going out and buying a gun.
Absolutely,
because
not.
Some people just aren't comfortable with it, and that's fine. But have some sort of plan in place with your family too. If there is a bump in the middle of the night or whatever, your family needs to know what to do, and you don't need to wait and talk about it when something happens. Right? You need to have some sort of plan in place ahead of time, and we've talked about physical security improvements you can make on the house and a lot of other episodes. But that's what we are seeing regardless. I mean, I've got friends that are I'm never having a gun in my house ever, as you can imagine, and they are calling me going, which gun should I buy?
Yep.
So, and that's just kind of where we are. But anyway, I hope that was helpful, you guys, on the Castle Doctrine stuff. I wanted to articulate a little bit more of it, especially since it's fresh on my mind. We just did that class a few days ago, but I think that's helpful for people to understand what that looks like. Obviously, Tom and I are both happy to help anybody that wants to, whether increase their physical security, get an assessment done, training, you name it. You can reach out to either one of us, either at Herring Technology or Defend Systems. We obviously work together quite a bit and are happy to help in whatever respect we can. So that will do it for this episode of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. You can always reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter. You can reach us at tipstacticstools.com.
I'm out.